So you talked about editing and the process of it all. Janet, when you're in those rooms, or you're reading a script, or you're about to start production, or you're going through your day-to-day, how involved is the showrunner, producer, director in the song selection? And how do you tackle, especially now coming out of 3 strikes, right? LA had 3 major strikes. Our budgets changed a lot. So how do you tackle those situations where if your director wants satisfaction about the Rolling Stones, but we know we can't afford that, right? How do you maneuver that conversation, and how involved are they in the selection of the songs?
So I think it's important to address, as you preface the question, a filmmaker is always very involved in the selection of the songs. They have to be. They have hired me to fulfill their vision. That is why I am there. I am literally a part of their team. And what's wonderful, I think, about my job is that, like a filmmaker, a director, and sometimes on a series in particular, there are a lot of opinions. So you have a showrunner, you have a studio, you have multiple executives. Sometimes the editor, as you were saying, has a very powerful say. And in my expertise, I listen to all of them, and I make sure that I'm listening to more than just music. I'm listening to their thoughts, their commentary, and I know what to present and what to avoid. So it is, of course, personal taste, but I'm addressing their personal taste. They're involved in music selection, and I'm curating for them. Sometimes, and I'm happy to say that they're kind of like, I don't know, what do you think? Mm-hmm. And I have to come to the table. I have to know what it is to turn them on, sort of. So I go, you know, maybe we're thinking about it subconsciously, or maybe this is really overt. Or maybe if the Rolling Stones' Satisfaction, which is an amazing song, is what you want, what is it about it that you like about it? Is it the riff? Is it Jagger? Is it Keith? You know, what is it?
All of the above.
All of the above. I happen to love Keith Richards, by the way. Personal side note. But I think that the preparation for those conversations is what I do. I prepare for myself creatively to go into the room and discuss music. And sometimes when a show doesn't, you know, like especially season 1 of a show, mm-hmm. Or any film, you're trying to find the voice, and it's not always scripted. So going in with ideas, going in with like ways to present something so that my director can say, I like that. Ooh, that's a good idea, let's do that. Or maybe I like that, but with a female vocal. And then it helps direct the conversation, which is constant. It starts with the script and it ends in the final mix. And sometimes after, because we're putting together a soundtrack. So it's a lot of listening, I guess is my point. It's listening to more than just songs, it's listening to the people in the room.
You mentioned pivoting, right, as you're going through the process and as you are finding the sound of season 1 or, you know, the first out of many sequels like Fast and Furious or whatnot. This is for everybody. As you're going through season 2 and season 3 and season 4, and the sound is there, but it evolves, right? You know, not every season has the exact same sound. What is what is your process in terms of bringing new music and introducing new artists? And I'll ask this to everybody, you too, Oscar, like how do you bring in new artists? But Licenciado, in your case, how do you collaborate or know when to bring a new artist into the mix in the creation of the song?
Do you want to start with
Yeah, we'll start with ladies first.
So when it's a new show and it's a new, you know, kind of like everyone's feeling it out, you do that. And hopefully the team works really well together, you vibe off each other. And then as Oscar was saying, as time goes on, you develop a shorthand. By the time you're into a later season, you're trying to preserve what you've done, but not make it predictable. You want to discover, you want to evolve, and you become even more trustworthy. By then, they're like, Janet knows what's up. So I prepare, and Oscar and you can attest as well, where I would say, okay, this is what we did, now you've seen the show, this is what I would feel like is what we're missing, and let's try to fill that void. Let's create something original for the show. Let's give this, area a bit of a sound. I also am a music supervisor that loves composers, film composers very much, and they're an art form. And working with them in tandem sometimes for a scene is really important because it helps you feel like there's a thematic through line. So more than just the key, it can be a song lyric or it can be a melody that later turns into a bit of a song, and you just influence each other. I've been fortunate to have that experience. I think LICENCIADO would be, like someone I'd be creatively like intrigued by, would be like, oh, what are your thoughts? And we'd vibe off of that.
Well, I mean, also it's important to kind of maybe explain a little bit, because in the sync world, we have stuff like you were talking about, which is more like creating a cue or specific music moment for a show or for a movie, and also the part where me as an artist, one of my songs gets selected to be in a specific scene. So there are two different things, So I'm trying to explain to my maybe musicians, colleagues and stuff, with maybe what's a sync and when is like a work for hire, when one is a sync that they want to use one of my songs in a specific TV show or a movie. So for musicians and of course artists, the jackpot or the lucky is when they select one of your songs to be in a movie, because that's your creation, your song, and now you're going to have the opportunity to be placed in a movie or a TV show, and just the satisfaction, not just because sometimes it's also good income for syncs and all this kind of stuff, but also as a recognition that you are in a movie or in a show that you like, and that's like a huge compliment, and you feel very, very like lucky to have that. But also talking about specific, like when, okay, we like this artist, but we want him to create something specific for a scene or a show. And that's the trickiest one, because it's like you were saying, how are you going to translate what you need? And sometimes it's music supervisors or directors or showrunners. They don't know the technical words or nomenclature to tell you what they're looking for. So that's, for me, the trickiest part is when you want to understand exactly what they're looking for. Mm-hmm. And because they are going to explain stuff like colors or suddenly like smells, or
I know who you're talking about.
So it's
I was
it's
told
like,
your song was
right?
too purple, and I had
Exactly.
to discover what that was, and I'm like, let's listen to that again and tell me where the purple comes in. And then I knew what it was. No joke, you guys. Everybody listens to music differently. We know that, but it's how you express. I want more boom, boom, boom. I'm going to say this are drums, but I don't know.
Exactly. They sometimes confuse rhythm with a chord progression,
Mm-hmm.
and so you are in this crazy world of like trying to understand what the director is trying to tell you. So that's the trickiest part, and I think that's a little bit more difficult for musicians who have their own specific career, want to start exploring the sync world, which is like an amazing area for musicians who would like to also maybe have another way of have another income, So it's you can have your specific project and be your own artist, but you also can explore the sync world, and maybe once you start understanding how it works, because even the structure of the songs, and you were saying how do they develop and everything, it has its own way of creating music for syncs, yeah, or for cues for movies. But you can have both, and I think it's a great opportunity for musicians nowadays, because a lot of brands, a lot of music are being placed in a lot of the TV shows, like you were saying, on Netflix, and most of the new platform streams have their own shows in their own country. So they are looking for
Yes.
music for that specific country, which is also great for musicians because they are looking, if you are from, in my case, we are from the north part of Mexico, they are looking more for regional, more cumbia, more that. So you can be working in that styles of music and be also being yourself, you know.
Real quick, I think song camps is a great way we get into dive into the second season or third season of a show. As the storylines change, so can the sonic identity a little bit. You know, the foundation's there, and so it also gives an opportunity for songwriters who aren't, you know, that versed in sync to work with somebody who just kills it in sync, be able to be a safe space for everybody to create. And so actually we're hosting one in Nashville in a few weeks for a second season of a particular Netflix show, and we're working with another publisher who has a deep roster of artists, and we have a deep roster of producers and writers. So together we're, you know, having a week of cranking out songs for this season 2. And we do that, you know, we did one in Miami earlier in the year. We're going to do one hopefully in LA in the next, you know, few months. But tackling opportunities in that way, it really helps, I think, not only the supervisor, but us be able to get new music, you know, because it is a volume game, it is a numbers game. You know, more songs we can give to supervisor,
Yep.
the more, you know, tools they have to work with.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about song camps because you kind of jumped into my question here. So,
All right.
talk to me about how do you put them together? How do you select who's going to be in the room? And if you're working on a season 2, how early do you get somebody like Janet involved? Is she in the room? Do you touch base with her?
Especially, you know, nowadays, I mean, since things can be virtual, it's always great to be able to have the supervisor in the room. And, you know, supervisors, they have a very busy schedule. So sometimes we'll get them in the morning and we'll do an early talk and go over the brief. You know, it might be a few different, maybe it's a character soundtrack. You know, this particular character has, you know, pop music as their sonic identity. And so we look across our roster of who fits that, you know, producers, songwriters, et cetera. And also the budget. The budget's gonna play an important role in that. You know, if we have, you know, let's say a budget of anywhere from $5,000 all in, which is $2,500 for the composition, $2,500 for the master, recording, up to say $10,000 all in. It's gonna be, you know, majors, you know, sometimes it's not within their possibility to do that, you know, and that's a great time for independent artists, especially during this change in media. You know, if you're an independent artist, you know, run to create more music and let us know, because we need music that's easy to clear. Supervisors need music that's easy to clear, that's easy to work with. It's on the business side. And so that's a big factor. Having the business figured out is important. So we look at our roster, and even those that aren't on our roster, and see how we can work with them. You know, can they create songs for us and we administer their composition and their recording to make it easy for the supervisor to use? You know, so we don't just solely look within our own, you know, building, our own four walls. We go out and say, who do you like? Who do you like to collaborate with? Are you signed? You know, do you want to be part of this? Let's work together. You know, we try to definitely not limit our opportunities or our possibilities.